gosh, I'm going to have to find ways to make myself happy. I'm going to have to.
Did you just put the ring on, or are you in the first few years of your marriage? Welcome to the First Year Marriage Show, the podcast dedicated to helping newlyweds navigate the first few years of marriage. My husband, Marcus, and I will be sharing marriage tips to help you build a strong foundation for your marriage. We believe having a strong foundation is essential to having a happy, healthy, and lasting marriage. We will also be learning from the experiences of awesome married couples who have been where you are today, taking from them lessons to help you build a strong foundation for the lasting marriage you desire. Take a deep breath, relax, learn, and enjoy the show. Welcome back to another episode of the First Year Marriage Show. If you or someone you know would make great guests on the show, please don't hesitate to let us know at firstyearmarriage@gmail.com. We also want to thank everyone who has already bought our new book, Communication in Marriage. If you haven't had a chance to get your copy, you can visit firstyearmarriage.com/communicationbook. For all the show notes for this week's episode, visit firstyearmarriage.com/27. Have a great week and enjoy this week's story.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the First Year Marriage Show. I'm your host, Marcus Kusi, and our guest for this week is Amanda Snodgrass. Amanda has been married for 15 years. She's mom to 3 kids, and she works in the medical field. Amanda lives in Kentucky and blogs online, and you can find her website at posttraumaticwife.com. Her blog is dedicated to helping wives and family members of soldiers with PTSD. Amanda, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're very, very welcome. I wanted you to tell us a little bit about PTSD. There might be some listeners who are listening to us today who might not know what it is. Can you share a little insights about it for us?
Sure. So PTSD stands for post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm still kind of learning about it myself. I'm in the medical field and I learned about it in school, but obviously living with someone with PTSD has been a whole different adventure, we'll say. So basically, you have a traumatic event or a traumatic series of events that can cause a range of symptoms like stress, anxiety, depression, difficulty coping in certain situations, lots of different things, kind of similar to like anxiety, depression type scenarios.
Thank you very much for explaining that to us, because I personally haven't experienced that before, and I don't have any relatives who have experienced that before, but I've heard a lot about it, and I'm glad you are giving us more information about it. And I know as we go on with our conversation today, you'll be able to share some light into how that really impacted your marriage and what you did to help your spouse with it.
Sure.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you met your husband?
Well, my husband and I were actually high school sweethearts. We met, we were in the 10th grade, that was a long time ago. But he had to ask me where the bathroom was. He was a new student, and I had to show him the bathroom. And then we ended up having some mutual friends, and we were friends for a while. And then we actually started dating in high school and got married shortly after. We were only 18 when we got married. So
wow,
we started early.
That's a really young age to get married.
Yes. Yes, it was.
So after you guys got past the first few years of your marriage, if you had to pick one word that summarizes that first year, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. One word for the first year.
Yeah, a word that summarizes the whole first year.
It was crazy. It was just crazy. We had all these great plans and nothing quite went the way we wanted it. We knew we were young when we got married, and we knew that it presented a whole nother set of challenges. So we had decided I was going to go to school, get my college degree, and then maybe in 4 or 5 years we were going to be parents. But I literally got pregnant maybe 2 weeks after we got married. So I'm like, okay, there we go.
All the plans goes out the window.
That's a little bit change of plans. Right. We hadn't even been married very long yet. And here we are. We're pregnant already. We had our first daughter. I think we got married in the winter, so we had her that fall. So, But, it was fun too. I mean, moving, I guess it sounds silly because we were so young, but, moving out on our own and trying to figure out how to live together and, all those little things that you dream about when you're young. I don't know if men dream about this, but girls dream about this a lot of times, starting your own family and starting your own household and being married, and not just all those exciting things. So it was crazy and chaotic, but it was also a lot of fun too.
Yeah, I know it's with the first year getting married at that young age is definitely going to be a little bit crazy because you're still developing and you're learning a lot about yourself and learning a lot about each other. And being in a marriage has its own issues or things that you have to deal with, and being that young and married is definitely something that it's not easy to do at all.
Oh, right, right.
Yeah. So talking about the first year, you just told us that it was crazy for you guys. What are some of the craziness? I'm thinking the craziness has to deal with the adjustments that you each had to go through, or adjustments or things that you had to do together to be able to move forward as a married couple. What are some of those craziness or adjustments that you guys went through during that first year?
See, now you're making me remember like 15 years ago. I remember we lived in the most awful apartment ever. I think it had 3 rooms. So we had this little tiny apartment, and we were pregnant. We were both working full time, and then I decided to go ahead and go to school. So I started college in the fall, and there's just a lot going on there. And then, like you said, being young and we're still trying to figure out who we are, and then we're trying to be parents at the same time, plus try to be husband and wife and go to school. And I think the hardest thing, though, was we accepted these responsibilities at such a young age. And then our friends were off, doing their own thing and going to college and having fun and going to parties. And here I was with, responsibilities and a household to take care of, and then a new baby. And I think those challenges were probably the hardest for us. Just trying to figure out who we were as a couple and as a family, and kind of mixing that up with who we thought we were supposed to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. I'm just trying to get this together. Whilst you were going through all of these adjustments, 1, you're trying to figure out who you were as an individual. 2, you're trying to figure out how to live together as a married couple. And then 3, you were trying to be new. You guys were new parents and trying to figure out how to be good parents for your newborn. What particular thing did you have to change in yourself, whether it's mindset or character trait or something that you actually had to do or sacrifice in order to be able to combine all of these different roles that you were doing successfully?
As far as something we sacrificed, I think we sacrificed a lot of time for ourselves, which is funny because I just now realized that as, my kids are older now and they're more self-sufficient. And so now I'm starting to get back into things that I used to do when I was in high school or early on. So I think we sacrificed a lot of, going out and hanging out with our friends or hobbies or things that just made us uniquely us. Things that we enjoyed doing. We had to put those on the back burner because we had to work. We were a 2-income family just because we had to. And then, of course, taking care of a new baby, that takes up a lot of time. So,
yeah.
So probably those things were the things that we missed the most. We just kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say we lost ourselves, but we just, had to put a lot of that. Like I was very active in sports, and so, just being physically active and getting out and doing things like playing on a team and things like that, I had to give up just to take care of the daily stuff, go to work, come home, take care of the house, take care of a baby, all those things.
Yeah, that's definitely not easy, because even with me being a dad right now, I know it's not easy taking care of a young baby or a newborn. It's something that you'll go through that learning phase, and then you learn a little bit about how to do things well. And then once you have a second child, it's a whole lot easier for you. But at that very young age, it's definitely very, very difficult to be able to do all of this and be married also.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys live together before you got married at all?
We did for a few months. I think we lived together maybe 3 or 4 months before we got married. So it wasn't very long. And essentially we had, because we just graduated from high school. So we essentially moved out of our parents' house and we moved into this tiny little apartment. Looking back on it, I'm like, what were we thinking? We were crazy. So yeah, just a few months. So we were still getting used to the idea of being together and living together in that capacity.
Did you go through any adjustments pertaining to living together in the same house as a married couple? Like an example could be how you guys wash the dishes, how you guys folded the laundry.
I'm sure we did. You mentioned the dishes.
Yeah.
And that's a funny story because I just like in the last couple years, I just got over it. I said, you know what? Load the dishwasher. Just load it. I have to just close my eyes and turn away and just walk away. And that was recent. Probably within the last 2 to 3 years, I finally was just like, you know what? He's doing the dishes. I don't have to. I'm just going to go with it.
What was the particular thing that he did with the dishes that was troubling you? Was it the way that he arranged the dishes in the dishwasher or the way
Yes, he couldn't load the dishwasher.
Oh, okay.
Well, he could. It just wasn't my way of doing it.
I know it's not easy doing all of that because you have your own way of doing things, and then you get married and your spouse has their own way of doing things, and you guys have to come together and find a compromise to make things work. Did you guys have any issues in terms of how you communicated at all?
I would say that's something we still work on a daily basis. It's something we've definitely gotten better with over the years. I'm an in your face, let's talk about it until we resolve the issue. He's more of a kind of, I need to go away and process this. So he would walk away and I would, walk after him like, wait a minute, where are you going? Where are you going? And that's something we've really had to work on is just good communication. And we still work on it. We still struggle with it. But I've learned now that, just let them have a few minutes, let them calm down, let them chill out. And then we can have a rational conversation about whatever's going on. So that was probably the biggest difference. Just the way that we communicate is so different. And he's learned that I like to talk about things and I can't sleep until we resolve the issue. And I've learned that if he needs 5 minutes, just to give him 5 minutes and he'll come back around and then we can talk about it.
That's really good. I'm glad that you both were able to discover that this is how you communicated and that helped you guys to communicate effectively with each other. During that first year, I know you guys are young. You were young. You were 18 years old, and I definitely could see you guys having a conflict during that year. Do you want to share one of those conflicts with us?
Oh, a conflict during that year. That's a hard one. I don't know. I don't want to say we didn't have conflicts because I'm sure we did. I can't think of anything that was like scarring or like damaging to our marriage during the first year. That first year was just really more about us trying to kind of meld two different, I don't want to say culture, it was kind of like a culture. My husband grew up as a Jehovah's Witness. And I was Christian, or I'm still Christian. And so, celebrating Christmas was sometimes an issue because I celebrate Christmas and he did not. He grew up not celebrating Christmas at all, actually not liking Christmas for religious reasons. And so I remember, he would always ask me, why do you want to do this? Why are we doing this? Why do we have to put up a Christmas tree? This is stupid. Those little things. And then trying at the same time to, you always think about when you get married, oh, it's our first Christmas together and it's our baby's first Christmas. And, all those little things that are supposed to be, significant milestones and memories. He's like, this is stupid. Why are we doing this? So that's really probably the biggest thing I can think of is as far as, a conflict is really just trying to melt those two belief systems into some sort of common ground.
Talking about your belief systems, can you guys walk us through steps that you took to prevent fights or arguments coming up simply because you had two different belief systems? Because
Hmm.
I know there are listeners who are listening to us right now who might be in the same situation. They might have two different belief systems, and because of that, they are always having issues or they're having fights here and then. That wouldn't happen if they had the same belief system.
That's a tricky one because we still have issues with. We still, I mean, he's not a Jehovah's Witness anymore, but I mean, he grew up, with those belief systems, and so there's still, and Jehovah's Witness and Christian they have very similar foundational beliefs. So the foundational stuff about God and Jesus and that was there, but some of the little things like, well, we don't celebrate Christmas and there's lots of little nitpicky things that we probably make a bigger deal about than we really have to. But I know the first part of our marriage, especially after having our first daughter, I felt like, gosh, I feel like I should be going to church and I should be taking my kids to church. And so for a long time, I went to church by myself with the kids. And I mean, it was disheartening and it was difficult. And I remember eventually he started going with me. And I'll be honest, I don't remember why or when exactly he started going with us. But there was a lot of times he would work weekends and things like that too, or he would work night shift. So he would be either asleep or at work and things like that and couldn't go. But I do remember once we used to live in a small town and then we moved to the Cincinnati area. And once we moved up here, we started meeting people. And I think it was more the friendships that we developed that we kind of found more of a common ground. And so now we do go to church together. Our beliefs are a little bit, I mean, they're not identical. And I think that's probably true for a lot of married couples is that, your beliefs aren't necessarily identical about the nitpicky things, but maybe the common, the major things about believing in God or not believing in God are there. And so now we go and I try to keep in mind the things that he is passionate about and also the things that he's not passionate about. So we have a running joke at our church. There is a fathers group that meets at 6:00 in the morning on Fridays. And so the running joke is he's never going to go to fathers group. That's just not for him. It's 6 a.m. He doesn't want to be hugging and shaking hands with a bunch of guys at 6 a.m. on Friday. So if I ask him to do something that's church related, I'll say, well, it's not like I'm asking you to go to fathers group, But we're leading a project, a service project where we're doing landscaping. He loves to garden. So I thought, okay, landscaping. So he's on board with that kind of stuff. So just little things like, trying to see what he's passionate about, what his likes, and especially what his dislikes are, and just having some compromise here and there. There might be a Sunday where he just doesn't feel like going to church. It's been a long week. We've had a lot going on. Maybe we'll sleep in on Sunday and go the next week. And part of me is like, gosh, we have to go every Sunday. But then I try to not make a huge deal about it. So it's more of a give and take now, which is nice. It's taken us a long time to get there, but
You are there now, so
we're there. I think something like that.
yeah, that's what really matters. Even though it will take a long time, being able to work together and take it day by day as you make progress. Definitely with some time, you definitely be able to get to where you want to get to.
Sure.
Yeah. So, what are some of the funny or exciting moments that you guys had in that first year that, when you look back towards, it brings smiles to your faces?
The first one that comes to mind is I remember the first year we had this horrible apartment that I told you about earlier. It literally had 3 rooms, no laundry facilities. So we would always have to go to his parents' house to do our laundry. And so when we found out we were expecting, we needed a bigger place. We only had 1 bedroom, had a bedroom and a living room and a kitchen, and that was it, and a bathroom.
Wow.
And so we needed a bigger place. So we found this apartment that had a laundry room. And there is a picture of me doing laundry for the first time in our own apartment. And we just thought it was the greatest thing ever. So that's probably in the first year, that's probably the biggest or probably the funniest thing that happened. That's really sad that I got excited about laundry. It's those little things you take for granted. You think, gosh, looking back on that, just doing laundry was exciting.
Yeah. Do you still have that picture today?
I do. Yeah, I do. It's in a photo album somewhere.
Somewhere.
Somewhere. It's down. I think it's in with my other photos, but yeah,
Yeah.
I have it in a photo album.
So after being married for over 15 years, I know you've learned a lot of things as you've gone through your marriage journey. What are some of the resources or programs that has really impacted your marriage, especially with all the issues that you guys had to deal with from how to lower the dishwasher to having two different faiths or belief systems?
I like to read. I like to read a lot, so I've read a lot of books. I'm reading, and I'll probably mispronounce her name, Stormy O'Martin, Praying for Your Husband, or The Power of a Praying Wife. Those books about praying for your husband. So I've read those, which are really good. We have been to marriage counseling, and that was very eye-opening. It was very interesting to get another person's perspective on your marriage. If anybody, I would highly recommend it. And I was actually listening to another podcast today, Confessions of a Terrible Husband, which you might be familiar with.
Yeah.
And I think Nick was talking about just going for a tune-up, like not even, you don't even have to have a problem necessarily, but just maybe go for a tune-up. And it was very eye-opening to have a third party just look in your marriage and say, you're right and you're wrong, or you're wrong and you're right, or I think, you're onto something about this, but maybe you need to change this. And definitely was not one-sided. It was, looking at both of us and what we contribute and what we, can change and make things different. So that was probably the biggest one. And then even, with my husband's PTSD, he sees a counselor for that, and she's great. And she made me come to his first 3 sessions. And I thought, I don't need to come to this. This is not my problem. This is, his stuff. But I learned so much about just what makes him tick and what things to look for and why he acts the way he does at certain occasions. And, so counseling in general, I guess, was very eye-opening. We've been to the Family Life Marriage Conference. We went a few years ago, and that was interesting too. That was nice. There was a lot of good resources there too. So those are probably the 3 things that I could think of.
Thank you for sharing these resources. Our listeners, I'm going to put all of these links to all of these resources in the show notes. All you have to do is go to the show notes and should be able to have access to them. And with the podcast that Amanda was talking about is Confessions of a Terrible Husband by our good friend Nick Pavlidis, and it's one of the marriage podcasts that I highly recommend for everybody to listen to, because I think the most recent episode that he had was more geared towards guys refusing to go to marriage counseling because we think we know better or we know more than the counselor, or I don't know what that has to do with our masculinity or just simply because we are guys. But I know it was a really good episode. I listened to it and I really enjoyed it too.
And I did drag my husband to marriage counseling, by the way.
Yeah. I don't know why, but sometimes we as guys, we don't want to go to marriage counseling. And I'm not the only one who has experienced this before. I've experienced this before, and I told my wife about it, but we weren't having issues, but she brought an issue. If you were to go for a marriage counseling, would you go? And I was like, I don't know about it, but after talking to a lot of couples on this podcast and listening to their stories and how marriage counseling really impacted their lives, I know it's really important. And when the time comes that we need to go seek a marriage counselor, I'm definitely open to doing that. And I know it's something that as a married couple should be doing, even if it's just once a year.
Or at least even, that just kind of reminded me too, having good friends who have good marriages is also really great. I had lunch with one of my good friends yesterday, actually, and she went to the Family Life Marriage Conference that I was talking. We went probably, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago or so, but she and her husband like to go maybe every couple of years or so, just as a refresher. And we were talking, it was nice to talk over lunch about some of the things, new things that she had learned. And it kind of challenged me too that, I didn't go to the conference, but just hearing her talk about these issues and things that she learned also challenged me in my marriage too, to think about different things. So So having a good either, I don't know if you want to call it accountability partner or just another couple to kind of mentor or kind of watch, and it's nice. It's a nice back and forth exchange. Sometimes we're mentoring them, and sometimes they're mentoring us. So it's kind of a nice 50-50 thing. But having those friends have been very valuable too.
Yeah. I know you guys have been married for more than 15 years. Is there one or two things that you guys do together so you don't grow apart?
Well, we do. We like to go, or we like to watch TV or a movie together, like when the kids go to bed. That's kind of our alone time. We like to do lunch together. Well, my husband stays home with the kids, and I work in the medical field, so my schedule is very weird. So I'll have days off, just random days off, and the kids are all in school, so we'll go out to lunch every once in a while, and we like to go for walks. He likes gardening, so there's a conservatory close by that we like to go to. And it's nice because it's in the middle of the day and nobody else is out, so it's not crowded and that sort of thing. So we like to be outdoors and do lunch and then watch movie. That's kind of our three go-to things.
Yeah. So that's really good. I'm glad you guys have something that you share in common that you can do so you don't grow apart. Because lately I've had a lot of couples who have been married for 20 years, 18 years, 15 years, and they all feel like they've not grown together, and right now their interests are so wide apart that it makes it difficult for them to live under the same roof or in the same house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The other thing too that I would say it's nice to have, and we've just kind of been doing this like in the last year or so since all three kids have been in school. We have time to ourselves, which is very rare for a lot of people, I know, but just time to develop your own hobbies and your own interests, so that way when you do come together, you have something to talk about. We found that over the last several years when we would get together, we didn't have anything to talk about because we were with each other all the time and we were doing the same things. And so it's nice to have our own things. Like I've started running recently, so I'll talk to him about running and different people I've met and different places I've been. And he does a lot of gardening and things like that. So today he planned out the garden and ordered all the seeds, so he was telling me about that. And so just having those differences too, and being able to come together and talk about those things too is really nice.
Amanda, thank you very much for sharing these insights with us and sharing your first year story with us. I know it's almost time for us to let you go, but before we let you go, I have a few questions that I wanted to ask you. What is the one marriage lesson or advice you wish you had known before you got married?
Ooh. So I think the biggest one, and I didn't find this out till late, so I wish I would have known, that my husband is not supposed to make me happy, which sounds weird. His husband should make you happy, of course. You want to be happy in your marriage, but as a person, I found that when I depended upon him to be my sole source of happiness, I was miserable because he couldn't live up to those expectations. He couldn't do enough or say enough to make me happy. And so I found, and I didn't find this out until he was deployed for a year in Afghanistan, and I was by myself. So of course he wasn't there to make me happy, so I had to be happy on my own. So I think I wish I would have known that beforehand, because I had this preconceived notion that, oh, we're young, we're in love, and we're going to get married, and he's going to make me so happy, and like this Nicholas Sparks, blah, 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 kind of fairy tale stuff. And you get into marriage and you realize, he leaves his clothes on the floor or doesn't put the toilet seat down or, stupid stuff, or he chews with his mouth open, or, whatever, these little things. And you're like, this was not in the book. This was not.
That wasn't the prescription.
Right. So when he left for a year, I realized, I was like, gosh, I'm going to have to find ways to make myself happy. I'm going to have to hang out with my friends. Oh my gosh, I haven't done that since I was in high school. And, have friends outside of marriage, or have a hobby outside of marriage, or take care of the kids on my own, and then also appreciate him for what he does do around the house. Because, you think, a lot of women will think, oh, he doesn't do anything around the house. He doesn't lift a finger and blah, blah, blah. But I'll tell you what, though, when he's gone for a year, you realize all of the stuff Daddy does, because you have to do it by yourself. Yeah. So probably those things. That's the biggest thing, is your husband is not here to make you happy.
Thank you very much, Amanda, for sharing these words of advice for us and the wisdom you've gained over the past 15 years that you've been married. If some of our listeners want to get in touch with you concerning the PTSD information, or they want to get in touch with you just to say thank you for sharing your story with me, what would be the best way that they can get in touch with you?
You can go to my website, www.posttraumaticwife.com, and there's a contact page on there. And you can send me an email through the contact page, and I will get right back to you.
Thank you very much, Amanda, for sharing your story with us today. I really appreciate having a good conversation with you.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the First Year Marriage Show. To submit a question, feedback, or suggestions for the podcast, visit firstyearmarriage.com/feedback. Apply what you've learned today and build a strong foundation for the happy, healthy, and lasting marriage you desire. Enjoy your marriage. Enjoy your life.